Welcome back to Players Coalition. I'm your host, Master Testfatsion, host of Bleacher Report's Untold Stories, and we are joined here by Saints linebacker Demario Davis. I got to put some more respect on your name because now you're first team All-Pro. Congratulations on that honor.
I appreciate it.
Now tell the folks where you're from.
Brandon, Mississippi, born and raised.
Okay.
Yeah, well, born in Collins, but raised in Brandon.
And what was it like growing up there?
Man, Mississippi is different, man. It really is different. I wouldn't trade it for the world, but Mississippi is it's very kind of closed off. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not a lot of people leaving Mississippi. There's not a lot of new people coming into Mississippi, and so it's very easy to grow up with a certain type of closed-mindedness, and so all you know is Mississippi, and most of the people around you will encourage you to stay in Mississippi. And so, you just grow up looking at life through this small box, and so, but that small box is full of a lot of rich information that's
Absolutely.
Needed and that I don't think you can get in a lot of other places, like hospitality. Hospitality is one of the most important things, like how you welcome and treat people. I remember when I was a kid, my grandmother would cook these huge breakfasts, and my grandmother had 10 kids, and so it was a lot of her children and a lot of the cousins just running around playing. She would feed all of us, and then she would open the doors to anybody that was on the street. So homeless people, people who didn't have as much, neighbors, and let them come in just to eat. And so just so much hospitality. So you learn that. You learn, like, how to take care of your business, how to be responsible. My grandmother had us doing chores all throughout the house when we were 4 or 5 years old. And if you didn't do it, you would get a whooping. And so you just grow up with this sense of what's right and what's wrong. You grow up with this sense of just appreciation for people. You don't have to call somebody when you get ready to go to their house. You just go over there and
just pull up.
Go in. And that's different in other places.
Absolutely.
But it's because you enjoy that company. You enjoy other people. It's not about, Mississippi is not full of tourist attractions. So how you enjoy yourself is the people that are around you. And so those are the things that you see in that little small box, but there's also, a much larger world that's out there. And so I was just blessed. I remember when I got my scholarship to go to Arkansas State, I literally went on my visit, and I came back home and I cried in my car.
Wow.
Because I had an opportunity to make it out of Mississippi. And I had watched so many of my friends who I thought were much more talented than me, who were stuck in Mississippi, because it's very easy what we call getting trapped there. And here I was, the one out of, hundreds of kids that I had been around in close relationships with, and here I was the one with the opportunity to leave out and make a change. And at that moment, like, I knew I'm going to Arkansas State. I got some Mississippi offers, but I got to get out of here, and that made a difference.
What I respect about that is that it's so easy once you leave. I grew up born in Dallas, raised in Irving, Texas. It's so easy when you become the one that leaves to never come back, because you become exposed to this different world, as you mentioned, and your mind is just, your curiosity just runs wild, where you're starting to realize of how all the things you maybe missed out on, and all the things you want to enjoy, and all the things that you want to learn now to pass on to your children. But the thing that I respect about you is that you haven't forgot about Mississippi. And that as current time right now, where there is prison reform going on in Mississippi, specifically with the Parchman Correctional Facility, you've been able to step up in a big way. If you can explain to them what has been going on in Parchman and why you wanted to make sure that you were involved with this prison reform movement that's going on in Mississippi right now.
Man, it's so many layers. It's so many layers to that. First of all, what people have to know about me, if anything going on in Mississippi, I'm trying to be a part of, especially if it's progressive or about doing the right thing and pushing us towards a better city, state, country. If it's involved in Mississippi, I'm going to be a part of it, because that's where my heart is. But I think what's happening at Parchman is a part of a much larger conversation.
Absolutely.
We have this problem with mass incarceration, but what does that really mean? What is the problem of mass incarceration? Well, we have too many people are going to jail and being incarcerated. Then during their stay, they're staying in horrible conditions. Like they're going in and they're coming out worse than they were when they were going in because of the type of environment that prison is. So there's no reform, there's no rehabilitation, there's no, it's almost like you're being done away with when you go to jail. But you got to think about going to jail and going to prison. That person isn't gone forever. They got to come back into society. So you're going to send somebody in one way for a crime and punishment, but they're going to come out worse than they went in? Like,
added trauma on trauma.
Yeah, that's not a good thing for anybody. Yeah. And then third, we don't have a good enough plan for helping people reintegrate into society. So just the prison system is right now is profit over people, and that's a problem. And it's on the front end, it's on the time that they're there, because the people, it's better to have more people go to jail because they make more money, because they get paid by the government for how many how many beds they need. But then two, they're keeping their costs, their expenses low, and their profits high, their revenue high, because they're not going to spend the amount of money that they need to spend on the people that are there. So the conditions are inhumane. And then they're not spending any money on rehabilitation programs and reentry programs to help these people reintegrate into society. So it's just a broken system. Now, what's going on as part of Parchman is a sample size of that in America, but it's on display, where you have people who don't have access to health care, they're underfed, they have horrible living conditions, and people are dying.
And as of this recording, 9 people have passed away just in January alone.
People are dying, like not normal deaths, bloody deaths, and you can see pictures of it on Facebook. That's traumatizing. You know, like, my kids are going to be in school soon, and they're going to be looking on Facebook, and they can see bloody bodies in prison. Like, I don't want my kids to be traumatized by the image, but that's reality. I would rather it be displayed on where people can see so that we can do something about it, versus it being hidden under wraps, which it has been for so long. So that's a problem. And so that's going on in my state, and I can't sit around and fight for criminal justice reform and prison reform around the world, in New York and New Orleans, and not do anything when it comes to Mississippi. That's just not right.
When did you hear about this? Because obviously, as a member of the New Orleans Saints, you guys were on a playoff run this year. And when did you hear about it, and how were you able to deal with that while also playing, and not only just playing, but excelling at a first-team All-Pro level?
Yeah, life's about priorities. You know, I do get to play this tremendous game that I love, almost more than anything, but my life is very prioritized. First, I'm a child of God. That's my number one priority. Second, I'm a husband. That's my second priority. Third, I'm a father. That's my third priority. Then I'm a man in the community. That's my fourth priority. And I just get to so happen to do that while I play the game of football. So I'm always trying to process those things. I'm never going to let, number 4 come in front of number 1. Or number 3 come in front of number 2, or anything like that. I'm going to try to keep it prioritized and balanced. But, even inside the game, that's what I do. But this is who I am, and so I can't just turn off my ears and turn off my heart and turn off my mind to things that I'm seeing, and so sometimes I just have to table it to when I can get to it. Last year, Josh Norman and I, we went to Flint, Michigan, and went down to the border. We had already planned that while the season was going on. Here we are having conversations like, as soon as the season over, we're going to go here on this day, we're going to go here on this day. Like, we just had to table it because, of course, you got this colossal of a job in front of you that requires a lot of time and energy, and we're going to do that. But I'm not just going to shut off, who I am as a person and the things I feel on the inside. I just have to make sure when I have time. And unfortunately, our season was cut short early, much earlier than we had anticipated. And when it was over, it's like, okay, well, it's time to be on mission. Here's an opportunity. And I mean, my pops were sitting down and just kind of discussing the season. And he was showing me videos that was going on in Parchman. He was like, man, we got to do something, man. Like, it was a fire going on, and the people were recording live on the video.
Which, mind you, these are phones that they're sneaking in.
Yeah.
The inmates are the ones that are exposing all the inhumane conditions that they're facing that we're seeing that started this entire movement. And you're seeing this at the same time your season's ending.
That's crazy. And the response to that was, the reason why we have this controversy is because the inmates were sneaking phones in. Like, if they would have never snuck phones in, nobody would know about what's going on. Like, what kind of response is that by anybody responsible for this?
Because who knows how many other Parchmans there are across the country right now.
Oh, there are many. And it's on us. I'm grateful for the inmates who stood up to get that out. I'm grateful for the officials who have taken time to say, hey, we got to do something about this. This is a problem. And I'm grateful for everyone who's using their platform to bring about change, not just here not just in Mississippi, but around the country. It's going to take a collaborative effort. It's going to take parts, all of us playing a part to make sure. I mean, our country has the greatest ideals ever. We have the greatest ideals ever. But we got to make sure that we're living up to the ideals and morals that we're putting out.
Did you checked out Parchman while you were down there, or what did involve in your movement there when you went down there? Did you see anything, or were you there to speak up? How were you engaged and involved in a firsthand perspective there?
Well, I always try to spend time on the ground level. I went to the rally, and at the rally, it was many people. A couple of friends of mine that I went to high school with had did time in Parchman. And to hear their stories, and them talk about, like, man, people are being treated like worse than dogs in there. Like, he was like, people are being treated worse than dogs. And his exact words was, you can't leave your dog out in the cold. You can't leave your dog out in the cold, but in Parchman, they'll leave you out in the cold. That was his exact words to me. And I'm like, dang, that's messed up. And, so being on the ground level and hearing these stories, and no, I haven't gone over to Parchman. I don't have to go over to Parchman. Like, empathy doesn't require that much of us.
Absolutely.
To be able to put yourself in other people's shoes. Like, everybody's screaming inhumane conditions, people seeing bloody bodies on. Like, you don't have to be there to know, like, this is a bad situation.
Their words should speak for itself. Absolutely.
Yeah. So it's like, it don't take much for us to empathize, and that's on us that we choose to do that or not. But I mean, even if you go to the understanding Parchman and how it was built, Parchman was built post-slavery with a slavery mentality. It was built on a mentality like a plantation mentality, and it was designed for black people to remember their place underneath white people. That's the mindset and the foundation of this place, and so it's going to be hard for this, when you have a foundation like that, for that to change, and now it's just a warehouse of inhumane treatment, and something has to change drastically.
The most recent change that we've seen, newly appointed Mississippi Governor Tate Reeves shut down Unit 29, which was described the most notorious unit within Parchman, where a couple deaths occurred there. Is that enough?
Definitely not enough. I mean, it's a start that something has to be done, and being willing to move towards it. When you have such a drastic situation like this, just shutting down a unit, of course, is not going to be enough. The most important thing in prison is they need proper resources. These are still human beings in there. They need an adequate amount of food. They need proper bedding, and they need proper time with socialize. They need proper time to go out and come in. Like, human beings exposed to certain conditions is proven to break down mentally. And that's why people come out of jail with post-traumatic stress disorder. And solitary confinement, like any psychological study will tell you that is not effective for the human being. That is not a form of punishment. That is a form of torture. And it's going to have drastic consequences. Things like that. And being underfed, nobody deserves to be underfed. Like, because you got to go do time, you deserve to be like, yeah, you got to go without 2 meals today. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? And then, not having proper water, not having, like, the basic essentials. I'm not telling them they need to be up in there having paradise, but, like, basic essentials, we all have a right to that, and so, like, they don't have those things. So I think the first thing in any type of reform is making sure that they have the basic essentials that they need to be a fundamental human being, and so, but also it needs to be opportunities to rehabilitate. Like, how do you help this person grow physically, mentally, and spiritually? Do they have opportunities to do that? Do they have proper classes being taught? Do they have proper educational opportunities, proper trade school opportunities to learn trades? Do you know in a lot of prisons they have people working trades, but they can't have the ability to get a certificate in that trade, so when they come out they can go and get a job? They don't do that. So you go in and work and make these prisons money, but then you don't allow to get a certificate in that trade that you're already working on? That is crazy.
Modern day slavery.
Yeah, and so it's just free labor. And that's a problem. So, like, we need to think about, like, the conditions that need to happen in prisons. And I tell you, thinking about this concept, hospitals have to be up to a certain code. Like, there's a board that's checking that they maintain up to code because they're responsible for people. And if they're not up to that code, the hospital gets shut down. We need to do the same with prisons. Prisons need to operate at a certain standard. They need to have certain conduct codes that they need to follow and principles, certain things to make sure that they have the essentials and that they're running properly and that they're, that they're not serving food that's contaminated, that they're not letting people take showers in water.
It's surreal for you to even say that there needs to be a code for people not to have contaminated food.
Come on, man. Like, they need to have a code, and that's where we are. And if they don't, and they need to have they need to make sure that they're putting certain amount of people back into society and that they're reintegrating with jobs and that they're going out being productive, like that they have so many people taking mental classes. They need to be performing at a level. We can grade prisons. We can grade them. And if they're not performing at a certain grade level, shut them down. Instead of just letting somebody go and get a private prison, and just make money free reign. Like, you're not answering to nobody?
It's off the name of capitalism.
Yeah, those people, they've gone to jail. Those people going to jail, they don't matter no more. They're not a part of our society. Like, we're just going to ignore them. Okay, what are you going to do when they come back in? And so, like, we like to treat them like animals, but we're actually making animals. That's what we're doing. We're making animals. That person was a human being who messed up when he went in. But when he came out, he was an animal. And it was because, our society made that.
Demario, for the people that are watching, what can they do to help? What can they do to help not only just with Parchman Correctional Facility, but as we mentioned as well, this is a massive issue in prison reform that, how can people get involved and how can people help try and make substantial change in this?
Number one, become informed. It's very easy. Just, hear an issue, hear what's going on, become informed. Do research. Don't just take your own opinion, like, in the way that you feel about it. Don't just stay in your emotions, like, go to your mind and, like, become informed about the issue. Like, what are people saying about it? What are the facts about it? Become informed. And once you know knowledge, like, watch documentaries. So much information. We used to have access to. You read books. You can listen to podcasts. You can watch documentaries. There's so many ways to take information in. Or you can go and talk to people. Find people who are well versed in the area and learn. That's what we do. We take time to learn about the issue, and then find a way to get involved. There are several ways that you can get involved. Like, you can donate to certain stuff if that's the way you have. You can give your time. You can give your time to certain stuff. Like, people are always looking for volunteers. There are a lot of nonprofits working in different spaces in criminal justice reform.
They're always looking for books too.
Yeah,
always looking for books.
And so if you have other resources that can be donated to these things, reentry programs, they need volunteers. They need people who are going to be willing and able. And if you're an owner or something like that of a company, be willing to help give people jobs when they get out of jail. And so I think there are a lot of ways that people can get involved. And I think even being a voice, like, hear an issue, and hear something, somebody speaking on the issue in the right way, publicizing that, retweeting it, posting it, commenting, making sure that your friends are understanding what stance that you're taking. Like, take a stance, reach out, go and vote, become informed on. There's so many bills that come up at election time that nobody even aware of that's going on in their city. And that's the thing that's going to, affect you the most. Mm-hmm. Like, so you need to be well versed on the bills that are up to get passed in the law, and you need to vote them up or vote them down. And so you have to be informed to do that, and constantly petitioning your city officials to make sure that they have fire in them to be accountable and make change around you.
Demario, thankful for all the work that you do in the communities. You're changing and touching so many lives right now, not only just in your home state of Mississippi, but also in Louisiana as well, and the work that you've done with legislation there as well. Appreciate it for the time. We're excited to see the work that you continue to do, not only just while you're an active NFL player, but throughout the course of your life.
I appreciate it, man. God bless.